Left Bank Books is an independently owned bookstore. We're a full-line bookstore. We're located in the Central West End neighborhood of St. Louis, Missouri. The store was started on July 11th, 1969, by a group of graduate students at Washington University. They were all social activists. They were especially active in the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement. And at that time, there was no internet. Printing presses were very important, and getting information out to people was not as easy as it is today. So they wanted to have a bookstore where they could offer books and magazines and periodicals and just basically ideas, access to ideas and information that was hard to find in St. Louis. There was a lot of stuff that just wasn't available anywhere. At the time, even carrying the Rolling Stone was considered controversial, and Left Bank Books was the only place in St. Louis that you could buy the Rolling Stone. We carried, it was, definitely there was a progressive bent to the political focus of the store. But it wasn't just about politics and history. We've always been about the larger cultural milieu of the time. So we carried a full line of children's books, and we've always been looking for books that are representing minorities. That is an issue that has come back into the news recently, is the complete lack of color in children's books. But it's been very important to us that children's books were part of our mix and that they told everyone's stories. The store also does a lot of author events. We do over 300 a year at this point, and many of them are in the store. They may be attractive to only 15 or 20 people at a time, but we also do huge off-site events that can draw as many as 1,000 to 2,000 people. We've hosted in the store President Jimmy Carter twice. We've had Hillary Clinton and other, various important dignitaries. We worked with President Jimmy Carter twice for 2 different books, and the most recent one was We Can Have Peace in the Holy Land. He's an extraordinary man. I'm so impressed with his sense of mission and social responsibility. And he didn't give a talk, he just came and autographed books and met people. So we did that in the store. It was a, big long line of folks who came through and met him and got their books signed. And he manages to sign 1,000 books an hour legibly and actually look up and speak to people at the same time. It's amazing. Running an independent bookstore has never been easy. In Left Bank, when it started with the donated books, it was completely undercapitalized from the get-go. And we've gone through a few different ownerships. I've been with the store for 40 years, and my partner, who is my husband, has been here 10. All of the time we've been in business, it's been a struggle. For us, just not having that big capital to begin with requires that we're clever about what we do. I'm always talking about how we have the zero budget event and the zero budget this and the zero budget that, because that's what we have to do. However, in the larger context of bookstores, it is, we're in a hostile environment these days. For quite a while now, the major way that independent bookstores have been fighting Amazon is around the sales tax collection issue. We live in our community and abide by the sales tax laws of our city and state. Amazon ships to people who in our community and does not collect sales tax, does not pay sales tax. So what happens, of course, as we all know, is the budgets of these states and municipalities are in terrible shape, and the tax base is part of the problem. Here is something that you legitimately could have. It's out there, it's not being collected, it's hundreds of millions of dollars. So in Missouri, they cut back Medicaid, they cut services, they cut education budget, they don't collect this tax that's just sitting there. The other aspect of what they do that is not as obvious to the public is the way they bully publishers to giving them, just outrageous terms, which are not offered to the other bookstores. That is questionably a violation of at least the Robinson-Patman Act. The worst thing about it is not just that we aren't getting the terms they get, it's that they're at this point starting to stranglehold publishers so much that it is not a sustainable model. So what happens is the price overall goes up for books because it has to cover these extraordinary demands that Amazon is getting away with. Well, one of the things Left Bank Books started doing about 5 years ago is we incorporated a not-for-profit, the Left Bank Books Foundation. And we did it for two reasons. One was all of the author events that we do are important to the community and the public conversation. They're not necessarily sustainable. We can't always break even. In fact, we rarely break even on some of these author events that we do in the store. But we want to keep doing them. So by creating the foundation, that gave us a vehicle to potentially raise money to do cultural events built around authors and offset some of the costs involved and keep doing it. But the biggest thing that the Left Bank Books Foundation is for is our program called River City Readers, which is a program to get books in the hands of St. Louis public school children. St. Louis City is like many cities, the public school system is grossly under-resourced. It serves a very impoverished, predominantly African American population. These are kids who come to school with huge reading deficits. They've not had books in their homes, no tradition of reading for pleasure. They start school at a distinct disadvantage from middle-class kids, and they play catch-up their whole lives. We started asking our customers to just give us money. We sponsor a classroom at a time. Every other month throughout the school year, those kids in that classroom will get a book that we select. We put a name plate in the front with their name in it, so it's really clear this is your book, you get to keep this. We set it up with authors to come to the classrooms as often as we can, so they're meeting the author, they're connecting the writing of the book, to this object they're holding. We are finding that it's really having a great effect with the kids we've been able to work with. They're learning, that reading can be something they can enjoy. They're getting confident. They're wanting to read. They're showing a desire to read. The teachers that we get to work with are so thrilled when we are able to sponsor their classroom. So we think that program started great as a grassroots program, just asking customers for money, but we wanted to build it and do more with it. So the foundation is the way that we're able to do that. Well, the founders of Left Bank Books took the name in the spirit of all of the cultural and political stuff that was going on in Paris in the late 60s. And as I said, the store started in 1969, so they were inspired by that. And Left Bank is the left bank of the river that runs through Paris, and there's some great bookstores and stories on the left bank, so that's why they took the name. Then in 1980, our 11th anniversary actually, we rescued a tiny kitten in the park. He was here for 12 years, Captain Nemo. We named him Captain Nemo because he was actually in a pond. He was rescued him out of the water. And he passed away, and then we had a second generation cat who came to us again, a stray off the street, also a black cat. We named her Jamaica, and she was with us until about 9 years ago. And while we were still missing her, yet a third one, another black fuzzy cat showed up, and that's Spike, and he's with us today. He's 9. He's totally the boss. He gets to say what does and doesn't happen here and how. But Spike has a whole customer base of his own. There are many people, especially children, who come here specifically to see Spike. And if he's off in a corner somewhere napping, everything stops until we find him, because children will leave in tears if they can't see Spike. So he's very popular. Spike has staff picks. So his best-selling staff pick is How to Tell If Your Cat is Plotting to Kill You. It's an actual book, and it outsells anyone else's staff pick. Spike's always outsells all of ours. When you first come in and encounter our store, what I hope that people see who haven't been in here before is just an amazing display of books that they didn't even know existed. And that happens a lot. You know, lately people talk about booksellers, independent bookstores curating their collections. And it's a fancy word, but it really is true. So they're going to see a lot of just fresh and unusual stuff. Then they're going to interact with booksellers who actually read those books and are excited about them and can steer you to something maybe you hadn't even knew about before.